Okay, so we are recording the Esoteric Book Club for Cycles of Opportunity by Carole Beckham. And we're going over chapter 5, which is, chapter 6, which is all of the constellations from Aries to Pisces from the esoteric point of view. And we're going to go through them kind of quickly because there's 12. We don't want to be here all night long. And so, I don't know, where should we start out?
I thought starting out with just the first page, kind of through 96 is good because she just introduces the cross kind of concept, which I think is something we could just talk about really fast. We don't need to get too into it, but just that there's the fixed, cardinal, mutable cross, and then she kind of begins out talking about how each planet again has an exoteric, esoteric, and hierarchical rulership. So that's kind of the intro to the chapter. But one of the things she said at the beginning that I thought was worth mentioning is that each cross has a sign that represents the exit off of the cross. And so for the fixed cross, Aquarius is the exit. For the cardinal cross, Capricorn is the exit. And for the mutable cross, Pisces is the exit. So I just thought that was an interesting thing to think about in relation to each cross.
Like the end of the cycle.
Yeah.
Essentially.
That's how I saw it. Yeah, like when you're ready for the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys see that?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not sure where you see that in the beginning of the chapter, but I did pick that up through reading.
I think it was on the first page of chapter 6 or the second.
Yeah, that makes sense. If it's the last 3 signs of the zodiac.
Yeah, it's page 96.
Yeah.
That's kind of when you go through the zodiac, like for like the most, I guess the easiest way to comprehend the zodiac is that it starts at Aries and it ends at Pisces, if there were a beginning or an end. And the human evolution cycle is explained through the evolution of the zodiac as well, which is exactly what she did in the book too, but on a soul level or a higher sort of consciousness level. And you can do that in a bunch of different ways. Like the hero's journey can be applied to the evolution. Also, the evolution of a human body can be applied to the cycle. And so having the exit points be the last 3 signs makes a lot of sense. That's where your, like, I guess, evolution of that polarity or that cross would come to a finalization and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, so that's kind of the beginning. Yeah, I think that's great explanation of that for sure. Yeah, and then she just kind of gets into the elements again and kind of what each sign is. And then she talks a little bit about exaltations, detriments, and falls. And so I'll just kind of say, like, since we're going to talk about that a tiny bit, she says that the power of planets, in particular signs, their exaltations, detriments, and falls can modify our use of planetary energies at a given time. And then she says, Monique Pommier says that exaltation reveals a planet's identity and its plentitude of being. The sign in which the planet is exalted indicates the particular energy field which galvanizes this revelation by eliciting the very purpose at the root of the planet's qualities and functions. Thus, the exalting sign gives fundamental insights into the planet's energy. And then she says, David Keston tells us that exaltations smooth out the less desirable qualities of the planet and also give something to the sign which the sign is in need of. Falls and detriments indicate the circumstances under which planetary energy is less effective. So I think when we talk about that, getting into the signs, that just gives kind of a good baseline for what that means.
Mhm. Are you guys familiar with those planetary relationships with the signs, like the exaltation, detriment, and fall? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm somewhat familiar with it. In esoteric, or not esoteric, in evolutionary astrology, they don't use them, so I'm not as familiar with it, but I think it's interesting. And I definitely took note of some things as I was going through the chapter.
Mm-hmm. It's good to know that, because then it makes the esoteric exo and hierarchical explanations makes a bit more sense if you already have the concept of various planetary rulerships already. And the way she describes the three, that made the most sense to me, is that the three planetary rulers steps down the energy of each of the constellations, like it's a different form of manifestation of that constellation through each of the planetary steps. So like the esoteric is kind of like the physical manifestation or the characteristic, and then the exoteric is the soul evolution, and then the hierarchical, I guess, is the group evolution. So that made a lot of sense to me. And that once you embodied each one, then you go on to the next, which gives so much more dimension to the constellations than just basic astrological explanations, because there's like a multitude ways of seeing a zodiac sign from that perspective, and it gives it the third dimension that we need as we're going into like the Aquarian non-binary process of understanding life, to have the multiple points of access for knowledge. So I think that's good. So we'll go through each of those for each of the signs. Was there anything else in the beginning that you want to talk about?
I guess just summarizing kind of what you said in bullet points if anyone's taking notes. Exoteric planet equals personality life. Esoteric planet is soul life. So it says exoteric planet equals personality life, which is 12 houses and planets. Esoteric planet equals soul life and rate energy. And then hierarchical equals group life of race or civilization. And then through the spirit or monad. And then it goes mental to astral to physical, which was in relation to what you were talking about.
Yeah, good point to bring up. And then just breaks through the fire, air, water, earth signs, which is the triplicities. And then we have another table on the next page that just helps to beat into us all the data that we will maybe eventually learn. So I don't know, do you want to start out with Aries?
Sure, Aries. We've got some images here.
Oh yeah, I'll share my screen. Or no, let's talk about the series, the Great Bear.
Great Bear, Sirius, and Pleiades. Yeah.
Yeah.
We forgot that part first.
Let's do that. Well, I think we saw this already, but here's a visual of the theory of the 7 rays going through the solar system into Earth, or from source, I guess. From source to Earth.
It's pretty wild. So essentially there's a belief that we have whatever is everything, and then that divides into 7 rays and goes through the Milky Way, or is in the Milky Way, and then goes down into the constellation Ursa Major, which is the Great Bear, also known as the Big Dipper. And then that goes through the star Polaris, or the constellation Polaris, the Pleiades, and Sirius. I think Polaris and Sirius are stars, and the Pleiades are a few stars. So it goes through that triangle, and then the 7 rays descend down through Earth. So when we're reading this book, she says basically in every chapter over and over and over again through the Great Bear, Pleiades, and Sirius. And so that's a good visual for us to kind of imagine what it is we're talking about. Obviously, this is a really crazy concept that people like Evelyn and I tend to gravitate towards and believe. If you don't believe it, you're like, what is this craziness? That's totally fine. But you know, it's the belief of esoteric astrology. And so it's fun to learn just anyways, regardless of what you walk away believing or not believing.
Yeah, the visual is so helpful.
So here's Sirius in its constellation in Canis Major. And the Sirius is the great dog star that there's a lot of myth around the entire world, especially in Egypt, and with what the Sphinx is supposed to be facing, the exact point that Sirius rises in the horizon on like August 8th or something like that. Like
Lion's Gate portal.
Yeah.
8/8.
So this is the star that they have the Sphinx pointing at. There's a lot of other, there's like a ton of other sort of myths that revolve around these constellations too. Also Polaris, Pleiades, and Sirius, if you noticed, there is the 3, but I think those are the 3 stars too that the pyramids are synced up with and are mapped out. Like if you put a map of the sky onto the ground, it would be synced up in the same positions, because the pyramids are like, there's 3 of them and they're just a little off from being a real triangle, which is a crazy concept too. And this is the Great Bear constellation, which is the Big Dipper. Got anything to add?
Well, I just love the Big Dipper personally. I look at it every night almost and just imagine the rays coming through and blessing me. And I'm not even joking. Like, I'm totally serious. I look at Ursa Major and go, thank you.
It's like one of the first constellations that I think anyone learns about as a person, right? Like that's the first one that I was able to identify. And interestingly, the comet Neowise is right below Ursa Major right now. So at night when you go out and try to look for it, you just find Ursa Major, and it's like just below that part. So it's kind of cool that it's in there. Here's a little image of Pleiades, which is a cluster, a star cluster. And here's Venus joining the star cluster. Pleiades, there's like a lot of aliens that come from there.
A lot of people claim to be star seeds from Pleiades, that they're supposedly a kind of like Venusian type people, or alien, I should say, that are here to spread love and joy and compassion, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've read.
I think so.
Yeah, peace. They're like a peace group.
Pleiadians.
Yeah. When people channel the Pleiadians, there's always like peace and love, and we want you to evolve and become better people.
Yeah.
That's where all the peace love comes from.
There's like a light council, right? There's like the people who channel talk about the council a lot, and like the Pleiades is a part of this council. Sirius, Arcturus, and Great Bear. Yeah, it's a cool place to be. So those are the constellations that she talks about a lot, and that's apparently where we're getting all of our information from in the cosmos. So Aries.
So Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, ruling the first house. And in esoteric astrology, it's ruled by rays 1. Ray 1 represents will and power and a bunch of other stuff. I just kind of wrote some quick little notes here. And then Ray 7, which is ceremonial, order, magic, and organization. So those are the main rays that are ruling Aries or influencing Aries. And then we have the exoteric rulership of Mars, which is on Ray 6. The esoteric rulership of Mercury, which is on Ray 4, and then the hierarchical, I'm trying to say this word the better, hierarchical, because I think that's how you say it, hierarchical.
Yeah.
Ruler Uranus, which is also on Ray 7. So if we go back to kind of what that means, exoteric would be the personality ray, esoteric would be the soul ray, hierarchical would be the group consciousness group ray. So it's cool to see because obviously, like when we think about Aries as a sign, there's a few different ways that I can kind of see all of that playing out that Evelyn and I were talking about earlier, just with Mars being very like, direct and kind of self-focused and agenda. And then Uranus, obviously is exoteric ruler of Aquarius, which is the group consciousness and rules that 11th house, kind of marries that will into, I was just shaking it, the will into the group consciousness. So, and then Mercury looks like it's kind of helping that transition. I have some notes here. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I guess I was surprised that Mercury was the sole ruler of Aries. And why don't we go through each one? Like Mars as the personality rulership, which you already talked about a bit. And I think a lot of us already have a good grasp on, which is the traditional Mars rulership. Like you said, forward motion, all that good stuff. But Mercury as a sole ruler is, she says that as the messenger of the gods, Mercury mediates between soul and personality. This mediatorship produces opposition and a long drawn out conflict, but finally works out into victory and the dispelling of illusion through the illumination of the lower mind. So she also mentions that Aries is a very, fire in itself is a pretty intuitive element, and is Aries is the initiator of intuition. So then having Mercury being the esoteric ruler, I guess would make sense as in it being like a initiator of relinquishing or dispersing illusion. And yeah, I don't know. And then Uranus as the group ruler, as you mentioned already about that, where to be the individuated self, then there's kind of the responsibility of going back to the group to to be the leader, essentially. So then Aries comes back into Uranus and has the leadership mentality of leading people into enlightenment or coming. And that's kind of the theme with a lot of these hierarchical planets, is that there's like the evolution of the zodiac sign, but then there's a moment of needing to go back to origins in some way with this newfound intelligence or wisdom, and for Aries to find its independence like so forcefully and so strongly, and then its hierarchical expression is to integrate back into the group, is like it takes wisdom to do that. And I guess it's like the disintegration of the need for individuation. As I come forth and from the plane of mind, I rule. And the word said, let form again be sought. This represents the evolutionary urge of reincarnation, which begins in Aries, and also represents the human focus on giving birth to new forms and ideas, experienced particularly in Aries. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got we'll just kind of say really quick, the exaltation and detriment and fall of Aries. The sun is exalted in Aries. The power of Venus is lessened and Saturn falls. And then she says the sun is exalted because it represents the life of the spirit, which comes into full expression as a result of evolutionary process initiated in Aries. Saturn falls in Aries because as the Lord of Karma, Saturn demands full payment of all debts from the form side and the soul side. And then with Venus, what does she say about Venus? She doesn't say anything other than it's lessened. But we know that, Libra, Venus rules Libra and exoteric. And in Libra, I've made a note, something she said in here. She says in Libra, Aries learns the balance of polarity. And so Venus obviously is lessened, having that opposition there. And then the last little thing, I kind of liked all her little keynotes that she said at the end of each sign, because it kind of showed you like where the next kind of lesson is for that sign. So it says, keynote on the path, Aries turns toward Capricorn, which made a lot of sense to me, because Capricorn to me is like taking that fire and applying it to the physical.
Yeah, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn because of that exact reason.
Exactly.
Taurus.
I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined. So Taurus is vibrating on ray 4, and ray 4 alone in terms of its main ray. Its exoteric ruler is Venus on ray 5, esoteric Aries Vulcan on ray 1, and hierarchical is also Vulcan on ray 1. I made some notes here. I put Taurus's desire in all its phases, and desire becomes aspiration. I quoted, expressed will activated by the impulse of love, constructive, planning, and creative.
This description really helped me to understand the earth element a bit more because of the way that she's interpreting Taurus and the rulerships of Taurus. Like the desire comes into play, the desire for form, and like a vessel is experienced in Taurus. She said the sign of major life incentives governs desire, tests us on the astral, and when we succeed, we uplift our desire sensitivity from form to sensitive perception on the intuitional plane. And it like, because we all know that Taurus is so sensual. It's a sensual sign. It's all about touch and feeling, and sensitivity is a term that we use a lot when it comes to like Taurus, Cancer, the emotional, more watery signs. But sensitivity isn't just on the emotional, it's also on the physical, like being sensitive to touch, like if you're really ticklish, or if you're really sensitive to like sugar and alcohol and like certain types of foods. That's also a different type of sensitivity that Taurus has great experience with. So what do you make of Vulcan and the esoteric and hierarchical rulership with Taurus?
Vulcan is still something I'm not totally like immersed in terms of fully understanding its energy or its purpose. So I don't really know. I mean, it links with ray 1, which makes me kind of automatically think of more of that kind of Mars type energy that we read about in ray 1, that's like will and power. So I think Vulcan kind of reminds me a lot of Mars and Pluto in its energy from just various things that I've read. She says that Vulcan links the first ray with the first kingdom of nature, the mineral kingdom, through numerical resonance. This forms a triangular rapport between Shambhala, humanity, and the mineral kingdom, which works out the angle of the plan, but also from the expression of materiality. So I feel like that kind of goes with what you were talking about in terms of sensation. And then I liked that she said the forger of metals. Vulcan symbolizes the densest, most concrete expression of the natural world. And I do know a lot of Taurus dominant people that the things that they work with, their hands with, or like, art tools,
Jewelers.
yeah, welders, jewelers,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff for sure. So that kind of also had a Mars influence to me, like the sharp tools, those types of things. And then obviously there's the Venusian quality of Taurus. So it's like seeing all that together makes a lot of sense to me. It says the energy of Vulcan is the strength and potency that sets the world evolutionary process in motion.
And interesting that Vulcan is associated with Mars. It feels very scorpionic.
Yeah.
With the Taurus hierarchical expression. And I think that with this well, with all of the signs, there's the opposite, and it has to be taken into account when interpreting what the energy is of that sign. And for this one, it's very prevalent with the Vulcan aspects, because Vulcan is Ray 1, also Mars is very Martian. Scorpio is Pluto, Mars, and very Vulcan. And the phrase that she wrote down for Vulcan and the Scorpio relationship between Scorpio and Taurus was the death of the form so the soul may be set free. And because of the density of Taurus, there is that need for like letting go of the desire for earthly form in order to transcend and elevate itself up to, I think, the scorpionic axis. And I think that's where maybe the Vulcan relationship comes in, because Vulcan helps to kind of like cut away what's unnecessary. And that's what I kind of got from that.
Yeah, totally. I love it. Death leading to liberation, darkness leading to light, blindness leading to sight, desire leading to aspiration. And then she puts exalted as the moon, which is that, we all, well, I shouldn't say we all know that, but I love the moon in Taurus. So I'm like, I know that one. And then detriment is Mars, which is interesting after talking about all that. And then the fall is Uranus, which is also interesting. I also thought it was interesting here. I put a question mark because I don't know if this is a typo, but she says Mars is in detriment in Scorpio and that influence can give a warlike nature to Taurus. But so I think she meant Mars is in detriment in Taurus.
Yeah.
Because it's not in detriment in Scorpio. So this is where your knowledge is really important, because there's a lot of typos in a lot of things. And it's good to just read a lot of things and not believe everything you read. I don't think she means that, because Mars is not in detriment in Scorpio. So I think she meant Mars is in detriment in Taurus, and that influence can give a warlike nature to Taurus. But the potency of the Taurian struggle is so great that the effect of Mars is lost in the larger whole. Which maybe, like we said, that's what Vulcan is helping Taurus in that, because if we look at esoteric and hierarchical, it makes sense, right? That the evolution of Taurus would be in Vulcan, because the evolved Taurus would see the value in the scorpionic thing of like letting go and the death leading to liberation, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I love the Venus relationship to illumination with this as well, because Venus is also on Ray 5, which is the 5-pointed star, which is the same symbol that Venus makes in her orbit in the sphere. And when it's in a geocentric model, Venus makes a 5-pointed star around the Earth when you're looking at it from the Earth's perspective. And Taurus is naturally ruled exoterically by Venus, and she talks about how Taurus is related to the third eye, and she wrote, I see, and when the eye is opened, all is illumined. The eye refers to the third eye of the initiate, which when opened illumines the mind. According to the Eastern tradition, Buddha achieved enlightenment during the full moon of Taurus. On a cosmic level, the eye of God is open, and from it light pours radiantly. Hence, victory is inevitable, for the potency of cosmic energy will unfailingly and in time subdue and reorient the energy of humanity. So a part of Taurus that maybe we don't really hear much about is that higher level of Venus as exoteric ruler of Taurus, and how by overcoming physical bodily sensations can we then find liberation and a certain level of enlightenment through that liberation. So Gemini,
I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. Glow.
grow and glow. It sounds kind of like a trendy marketing, like new agey.
I know, we should make
Class.
products that have all these esoteric things on them.
How to grow and glow.
Gemini.
Gemini.
So Gemini is on Ray 2. I kind of don't think you're supposed to have a favorite Ray, but I feel like after reading this, Ray 2 is my favorite. Maybe Ray 2 and Ray 7. Wait, is that the rays I'm on? Okay, anyways. So yeah, Gemini's on Ray 2, which is the love and wisdom Ray. Mercury is exoteric ruler of Gemini on Ray 4. Esoteric is Venus on Ray 5. And then hierarchical is Earth on Ray 3. I love that Earth is included in esoteric astrology. It's
Me
so
too.
cool. So my little notes: synthesis. Gemini is all about synthesis. Unity with truth, fusion of opposites. Fluidity, understanding, mediation, communication, and mental discrimination. So those are kind of my little bullet points on Gemini in its power. What do you have? Anything? Oh, she's laughing because we were talking about Gemini earlier and her relationship to Gemini, which is wonderful.
It's fun. So Gemini doesn't have any falls or exaltations, and that's the same with Sagittarius. And that's also the same with Aquarius and Leo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those four don't have a fall or exalted planet that is with them, and I don't know why. She probably says it, but I don't remember.
She does say why, and it's all kind of around the fact that they cancel each other out in the way that they get expressed, because there isn't actually like a lesser manifestation of it for some reason. There is a lesser when it comes to detriment. So there's not exaltation or fall, but then she still kind of acknowledges the detriment planet. But she even then says that it's not really something to really look too far into, but that it can be lesser. So that's a little bit different. Like in traditional astrology, there's definitely a fall and detriment.
Mm-hmm. So Gemini is all about the polarity, and you see it in the symbol. It looks like a Roman numeral 2. And it is the 2 points of polarity split, and it's like kind of always seeking to find the unification somehow. And what does it say? Seeking unity with the truth messenger between soul and brain. So just like Pisces has the duality within itself, with the soul and source, Gemini has the duality with the soul and the brain. And there's like, we always talk about Gemini as being like Jekyll and Hyde, or like the two-faced Gemini, because they're constantly trying to fuse the two separate parts of the brain, the left and the right brain, as one. Which would be the esoteric expression. when the two get fused together. And Venus's rulership is exoteric ruler of Libra. And in her explanation at the very end of Gemini, which she actually writes a lot about Gemini, she writes, Gemini moves toward Libra. And Libra is the connector for Gemini. So that would be the Venus esoteric connection. And then the hierarchical Earth, what does she say about that? Group ruler is with Earth, it's significant. These are the only two constellations ruled by Earth, which is Gemini and Sagittarius, which is a major significance, creating an unusual situation in the solar system and a relationship that is unique to this pair of opposites. The cosmic line of force between Gemini and Sagittarius is subjectively and esoterically related to Earth, thus guaranteeing our soul development, the unfoldment of form as an expression of that soul, and leading humanity into initiation in Capricorn. Says, so she's, and then when she talks about Sagittarius as having the Earth rulership, the end goal of Gemini and Sagittarius is to fuse together to create like a beautiful Earth, or like a utopian type of Earth experience.
We just want to have fun.
What, Sag?
Sag and Gemini.
Sag and
We
Gemini.
just want to party.
You guys just want to make everything make no sense at all.
And party. It makes sense to us.
It doesn't make
Everyone
sense
needs
to anyone
to stop
else.
being so serious all the time. Cancer.
Oh,
right?
good. We're okay. Good.
Well, I think we should move a little faster. I'm getting nervous. Okay. Build a lighted house and therein dwell. I build a lighted house and therein dwell. How do you feel about that quote?
I thought it was cute.
She builds a lighted house and therein she dwells. Or he, or they.
Actually, they, them, there. What did I write? I wrote root consciousness versus mass consciousness for Cancer. Moon controls the form of the lower psychic nature, and Neptune is devotion and idealism. So the exoteric rulership of Cancer is the moon, esoteric is Neptune, and then so is the hierarchical Neptune. Cancer lives on ray 3 and ray 7, and the exoteric rulership, yes, we already know about that. The esoteric, being Neptune, would be I don't know, what does she say about this one? Let me look at it really quick. But the moon is veiling Neptune as the personality ruler. And I think that just means that Neptune is there but invisible behind the moon's light or lack of light. And Neptune, it's the same with Leo, where the sun veils the all three exoteric, esoteric, and hierarchical planetary rulerships. But it's like an underlying, it's like a conjunction, I guess.
Combustion.
Or yeah, a combustion. When it's there, but you can't see it because the power of the luminary is much stronger than the other planetary energy. So it like dominates the energy, which is what the moon is doing to Neptune in the personality rulership. And the Neptune soul and group rulership, she says, Neptune, ruler of the ocean, whose trident and astrological symbol signifies the Trinity in manifestation, which is the 3 points and the cross right below. Whenever you see the cross, it means material or manifestation or matter, or earth has the same symbol. Rules of Piscean age. Neptune introduces the water of life into the ocean of substance and thus brings light to the world. This demonstrates the control of the fluidic astral plane. Neptune relates Cancer to Leo, where Neptune veiled by the sun also rules on the soul level of Leo. So it's the same sort of situation. And Neptune in itself is a veiled type of planet too, where it's a more of a belief that you have to believe that it exists. It's kind of like you can't see it with your naked eye. You have to use your intuition to access Neptune. And that's what Cancer is able to do. So that's why when we talk about Cancer people or the fourth house, there's also a lot of connotation with psychic abilities and the psychic sense being heightened with Cancer, which is the sensitivity. Do you want to go through the mediation seed thoughts?
Meditation, seed thoughts.
What it says?
Sensitivity, gateway of mass consciousness, nurturance, shelter and protection, bearer of light. I also had a little star next to something with the moon veiling Neptune that I just kind of wanted to read really quick. Moon and Neptune is the difference between change for its own sake and change as a means of progress toward a more inclusive state of being. I just thought that was a cool way to see how they work together.
With the exaltation, falls, and detriments.
Yeah, so that we have Jupiter and Neptune are the exaltation in Cancer, and Saturn is in detriment in Cancer, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
With that.
Yeah.
All right.
Next.
Cancer's been next.
If I can just say something real quickly, I thought it was really interesting that Cancer's so heavily ruled by Neptune when I would expect that from Pisces from traditional astrology, or maybe not traditional, but evolutionary, whichever other version is more common currently.
Yeah, it is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
What is Ray 6 again? Do we remember what Ray 6 is? I know that's the Neptune, devotion and idealism. So I think that one of the things that I like about esoteric astrology so far, now that I'm understanding it a little bit more, is some of those things that are kind of like, from what I would normally have learned, you know, about Neptune. Once I bring in the Ray, it'll kind of bring it all together, because I feel like Cancer is very devoted and idealistic as a archetype. So I think that thinking of that Ray 6 paired with what they kind of talk about with Neptune helps me understand it as a Cancer evolution, because I do feel like Cancer on a personality level is different in terms of what they're saying the evolved Cancer, right, would be that Neptunian energy. And then if we look at the mutable water as the exit, that's Pisces. So that kind of brings it all together for me. What do you think? The more confusing?
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I guess I like it. I think I like that esoteric astrology is giving a much more well-rounded version of each type. And I think I can see it. You know, I think you see glimpses of these things in people who you might know that may embody that that soul, the planets that's ruling the soul. You might see that, I think, in some of the different types of people you know. Anyway, we can move on because I know we're short on time, but
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, mm-hmm. And yeah, it gives it a little bit more dynamic, more dynamic. Like people aren't so like one-sided. Like there's much more to people, and we also have a greater potential with the interpretation as well, where we're not like, oh, you're Cancer, you're sensitive, that's it. Like we know actually you have a really high ability to be devotional to your craft or whatever work that you're doing that's like for the greater good of humanity, and healing as well, which is Neptune. And how many Cancers do we know in nursing and like the healing professions, and being a doctor, someone who wants to like heal with their watery ability to transmute pain and suffering. So here's the Leo constellation. We're Regulus, is it's kind of a bad, it's not bad, no, it's not bad. It's just kind of a really intense star that has been pretty popularized because Trump has Regulus on his ascendant. And that's a really interesting myth if you guys want to look into that. But that's associated with Leo and like the kingliness and kind of like, I don't know, royal part of Leo is that interpretation of Regulus. She says, I am that and that am I. Should I just like totally sit back and let you do all this?
Probably, but I kind of want to hear what you have to say and tell you if you're wrong.
So the let's see what she says here. Let me get over
Can I just say
here.
one thing before you start, before I hand the mic over?
Yeah.
I just feel redemption when she says, it gives us the opportunity to attain individuality of true self-consciousness, which is different from self-centeredness.
Oh my god.
That's all I have to say. Different from self-centeredness. Self-consciousness is not the same.
Says a Leo about herself.
Okay,
Well,
anyways,
whatever you want to tell yourself.
pass the mic. Andy Cohen, we want a reality show.
Wait, we have 2 things in the chat. Oh, Anna's feisty today. Look at you. Must be the sun these days in Leo.
I think it's
lighting you
conjunct
up
my
or
vertex
something.
right now.
So the exoteric rulership of Leo is the sun, the esoteric is the sun, hierarchical is the sun, but the sun veils 3 other planets, which is Jupiter, Neptune, and Uranus. And the Jupiter relationship to Leo is, I guess, just like greater warmth and like radiation of self and warmth and I don't know, self-expression and creativity, wanting to give of the self. What you said is like the ability to attain individuality truly is one of Leo's ultimate greatest like sort of gifts that they can share to the evolution of humanity, is to show what the true individuated self is capable of doing outside of the group, and to offer like being a muse or inspiration to others to step away from or be an individual or like not think what other people are thinking. She says too that Leo has this strong ability to think independently of the group and not be swayed by outside opinions, which I think is the Sun-Jupiter connection really, really strongly. But then moving into the esoteric soul number or soul planet with Neptune is the I guess the desire to connect self with source. It's always like the end all. But I'm just going to read what she says. The sun, the esoteric or soul ruler, is associated with the Ray 2 energies of love and wisdom. For the soul level of Leo, the sun veils Neptune, which is associated with the Ray 6 energy of devotion and idealism. The relation of Leo to Cancer through Neptune concerns the consciousness aspect of evolution. There is mass consciousness, then consciousness of the dramatic, isolated self, and finally, group consciousness, the highest forms of group and individual consciousness combined in the service of plan, capitalized P. So there's no planets in fall or detriment in Leo. It's all similar with Aquarius and Gemini and Sag. Leo is also a sign of self-mastery, self-discipline, intellect governing ambition. Oh, no exaltation. Saturn has his power lessened in Leo, though, is what she writes, because Saturn is, well, Leo wants to burn up Saturn's energy, and Saturn is iron, and what is it, like high temperatures of fire can melt iron. It's like a really hard metal to melt, but Leo's like solar energy can do that. So it shows that even with the strength of Saturn, Leo is able to temper such a dense planet, and therefore it doesn't have as strong of an effect on Leo. No one can tame a Leo, basically. What else? Anything else?
I mean, she does say that Leo is one of the most important signs to humanity right now. So
I thought that was Libra.
maybe it was.
You're just interjecting.
I can't. Oh yeah.
Oh
What
no,
did
it
she
is
say?
though, because we're going in the age of Aquarius.
Yeah, that's what she
And-
says.
Yeah, and with Leo being the opposite of Aquarius, it's one of the important embodiments for us.
One of my favorite things, though, that I really relate to, especially since having my son in the 8th house, was Leo seeks release in Scorpio. So I thought that was really cool because I definitely feel that to be true in myself. Okay, anyways, not self-centered, just self-conscious. Virgo. Thank you for telling me about myself.
I'm kind of curious though why Scorpio makes sense for you as a form of release for Leo.
Because I think Scorpio, the way that I feel in Scorpio is that it's permission for me to burn away or let go identities that Leo sometimes feels pressured to carry. So I think Leo has that exoteric need to show or perform or be something. There's kind of like a sense of duty that I think Leos have to like entertain. And Scorpio's like, burn it all down, get rid of it, let it go. And so it feels like the weight of the identity can be released.
Yeah, because Sun's ego, and then there's where do you go to die and be reborn as a new and improved Leo is
Exactly.
Scorpio.
I like reinventing myself.
The evolution. Yeah. Revolution.
Madonna.
She's Leo.
Yeah. That reinvented herself a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Virgo.
12th house sun, which I found really interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
she does?
Yeah, but it kind of makes sense for how like tapped into the collective consciousness she was for the ways that she reinvented herself.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, we don't have a constellation for Virgo. We just have 2 for Leo for some reason.
I sent you one for Virgo.
Yeah, okay.
You didn't download it. It was a beautiful one that I was excited for you to see.
So Virgo.
That wasn't my fault.
I am the mother and the child. I, God, I matter, am. So it sounds like it sounds like a Kanye West tweet in the throes of a bipolar episode. Like, what? I am the mother and the child. I, God, I matter, am. I matter, am. So she's basically trying to talk about the matter, not I matter as a person, but I matter in the form, in a physical form, substance of matter, am. I, God, with the connotations, the opposite of Virgo is Pisces, and so there's the spiritual connotations with Virgo. It's ruled by Ray 4, or it is in Ray, 6 and 2, which is the spiritual ray, and then the
love and
wisdom ray. And so Virgo is the exoteric ruler of Virgo is Mercury. The esoteric is the moon, and hierarchical is Jupiter. And it may be interesting to see the moon associated with all of these earth signs. And the point of that I'm understanding is that the moon is married to the earth. And we sometimes forget that the moon does govern a lot of what happens on the earth itself, and that it's not all about water, but it is about creating a form to a watery substance. And that's what moon does with our emotions too. The physical is a vessel for the watery element, and they are hand in hand, which is why they're both the feminine principle of the elements, and air and fire are masculine. So they both work in tandem really well together, while earth and water work really well in tandem together. What I have, integrated personality results from the functioning form nature, depths, darkness, quiet, and warmth. The hidden light of God, the mother of the Christ child, silent activity of form, function in the womb. So she's bringing in Virgin Mary into this with the womb creation of the Christ child, and the nurturing of the creation. So Leo is the creation, and Virgo is like the nurturing of that creation now. And like the fiddling around with it. Oh, are you hungry? Oh, do you need anything? Oh no, are you sick? Oh no, is everything okay? That's like the Virgo moon mom, sort of like, oh no, my creation.
As someone with a Virgo mom, I can say that's true. It's more like mommy dearest, though.
Yeah, right.
A little bit.
She's gonna hear this.
That's fine. She knows I say that stuff.
So what do you have to add to this?
Mercury is exalted, so it's esoteric ruler and also exalted in Virgo. The fall is Venus, and detriment is Neptune, which makes sense to me. Detriment, especially considering Neptune and traditional rulership is, or I guess I shouldn't say traditional, transpersonal rulership, evolutionary rulership. Neptune is Pisces. So we see it as detriment for Virgo here. And then Venus is a higher octave of Neptune, Neptune is a higher octave of Venus, and so Venus is the fall. So we see that, and she talks a little bit about that more. I don't think we need to talk about the Mercury exaltation so much.
The Venus, pure love, wisdom.
Yeah, falls into generation, and Virgo occultly descends to earth and stands for the gift of mind and divinity, and thus for the descent of the Christ principle into generation or into matter. Virgo and Venus are two aspects of intelligence. The symbolism of the descent of spirit into the womb of the Virgin Mother is preserved for us in the astrological fact that Venus falls in this sign. Esoterically, she disappears from view and vanishes into darkness. I think that's pretty beautiful. I kind of like, too, thinking of the fall and detriment not so much in a negative way, like kind of how she's worded that. Like, it doesn't feel like a bad thing to me reading that. It just feels kind of like the transmutation of energy, as energy is kind of morphing into these other expressions of self, and that depending on where, the way that I like to look at astrology on a personal, like individuated level too, is that the way we're wired, like our strengths are kind of like, that's what we're here to focus on in this life, but we still want to integrate, some of these things that might be hidden but are still accessible to us. And that's kind of how I view this description of what Venus is doing, so that these other qualities of Virgo can kind of play out. And then Neptune, which expresses race 6, devotion and idealism, is less powerful in Virgo because the drive of devotion and desire give place in Virgo to the natural processes of form production and the silent activity that is going on within the womb of time and space. And then Jupiter is lessened in the Virgo cycle because the second aspect of divinity, the Christ principle, descends into the depths and is temporarily veiled or hidden. Just more of that stuff is cool. Keynote on the path, Virgo hides the light, which irradiates the world in Aquarius.
Well, this reminds me of like the original sin and how Virgo's desire for purity and cleanliness is very representative of how toxic patriarchy has gotten with like this virginal like ideation, and that Virgo is the first sign before we go into the higher astrological belt with Libra and then Scorpio. So then Libra would be the merging of the two, which would be like sex, and then Scorpio would be like, or Libra's like the judgment of Virgo's sin, and then Scorpio would be the like the death or the punishment of all the sins. And with Virgo's opposition to Pisces, there's like the devotional aspect with Virgo where like cleanliness, cleanliness, cleanliness. I'm dirty, I'm too dirty, I'm too sinful, I need to be pure, purity. Yeah, just like sort of something that's going through my brain with
My
Virgo.
mom does love confession.
What's that?
In Catholicism.
Oh.
Confession. She's a Virgo. That's why I say that.
Oh, just like purging all of my sins,
She's like, I need somewhere to go and tell everyone.
all the dirty things
Yeah.
I did.
And I'm like, just do it at home. Why do you need to go to confession? Just live your life honestly and you don't have to confess
So I can
anything.
be judged by Libra.
Yeah, exactly. Her mom's a Libra.
I have a 6th house Pluto, so I feel a lot of intense Virgo energy. And that's where my South Node is too. So I feel like as I've gotten older and learned more about astrology, I relate so much to Virgo.
That's where your soul evolution PowerPoint is. Like once you're able to overcome whatever that like obsession is, then you can transcend and go out into the spiritual relationship with whatever it is, like the atonement, I guess. So Libra.
Should I tell you about you now?
Yeah. You don't have Libra. Oh, here's Virgo.
That was my beautiful Virgo image.
Oh, it all got mixed up. Oh well, here's Libra. Beautiful Libra.
Beautiful. I found Libra in the sky for the first time the other night, and now I see it with Scorpio every night, and it's so cool. I love it. Libra, I choose the way that leads between the two great lines of force. So Libra is on ray 3, which is that Earth ray, which is cool. And then it's exoteric ruler is Venus on ray 5, esoteric Uranus on ray 7, and hierarchical is Saturn on ray 3. I do have to say that Saturn in Libra is probably one of my favorite energies because I think that I just love what Saturn and Libra on the hierarchical represents in terms of cause and effect and the laws of karma. And I think that's something that really helped me understand the Justice card in the tarot more in depth. Because I felt like a lot of times Justice, I was like, it's balance and law and order, but it felt very exoteric. And then I'd be like, but Venus. And then once the Saturn element, when we think of Saturn as the time lord and the lord of karma, and then you think about it in Libra, which is that, you know, the scales of Ma, and is it Themis? Is that how you say the Greek or Roman one that holds the scales? Themis is the death god. What's the...
I don't know. The Roman one.
It's TH something. Another TH. But yeah, so I really enjoy learning about that. The notes that I have for Libra is balance, money, sex, justice. Libra relates the 2 in Gemini, which we learned in Gemini. And then Libra also represents choice, interlude between 2 activities, suspension of law, and then balance and equilibrium again. Danielle, you had sent me a screenshot of this while we were reading chapter 6. I kind of wish we had the screenshot up here, but there's a little thing that says opposites that can be balanced in Libra, and then it kind of goes through what all of them are. And we were laughing because dull stupidity is one of the opposites that can be balanced. So dull stupidity to enthusiastic wisdom, which I like that. The other ones are fickleness and variability to a secure position, imbalance to balance, bias, prejudice to justice and judgment, untrue, showy outer form life to true, correct expression. That's hilarious too to me. Untrue, showy outer form life to true, correct expression, whatever that means. Kanye. And then intrigue to straightforward conduct, materialistic attitude to spiritual attitude. And
big themes.
Lots of themes here. Do you relate to these as a Libra?
I mean, those are like, I feel like collective themes that are, I don't know, more bigger picture sort of things that people would experience. Like, I don't like in balance and balance, you know, like those are two very vague sort of themes. So in terms of relating to it on a personal level, I can see those, I see them as just like polarities, and that's what she's trying to express, is the difference between one and the other, and like merging the two for Libra. But the one thing that I really enjoyed hearing about with her explanation of Libra with these rulerships was that there's a lot more focus on science and law and order and justice with Libra, rather than the traditional Venus explanation, which is romance and love and relationships. And like the hierarchical planetary ruler is Saturn, which is like law and order. And Libra, I think it's in its like a exoteric explanation, gets like there isn't a lot of like, you know, these astrological signs don't get the justice that they deserve, like the potential that we could see in these signs. Like look at Kim Kardashian, for example. She's a Libra, and now she's gonna be a lawyer. She was a model. She went from Venus exoteric to being all about beauty and the aesthetic, and then who knows, maybe she went through some sort of esoteric. Yeah, she's now like, you know, available on the internet for everyone to hear about. She realizes now she has a responsibility in the collective because she has such a high power point of like, she's just in a very high position where she's got like 5 million followers. So like 5 million people are listening to what she says. So then going to the hierarchical is attaining the responsibility with the collective that she now sees that she has and has influence over. That's all up to her with her own will, that whether what she does with that, whether it's for good or personal gain. But that's how I see the evolution of Venus, Uranus, and Saturn with Libra.
Love it. Meditation seed thoughts. Judgment, choice, the suspension of karmic law. Keynote on the path. Libra relates the two in Gemini. I already read that. I read that in the beginning. All right.
Okay.
Scorpio. Warrior, I am, and from the battle, I emerge triumphant. Scorpio's on ray 4, and its exoteric ruler is Mars, ray 6, Pluto, ray 1, and Mercury, ray 4 for esoteric and hierarchical. Confrontation with the past and spiritual aspiration. So she talks a lot about reincarnation in Scorpio, and kind of, I liked what she said here. She says, experience through the Scorpio cycle involves a confrontation with the past and the two factors of recapitulation and reorientation. The recapitulation of past events and incarnations involves memory, leading to reorientation as a consequence of memory. Memory, an aspect of thought coupled with imagination, is a creative agent because thoughts are pre-material things. When we evolve to the point where we can use memory in a conscious and creative manner, we can then bring clarity to the struggles of humanity and as a result, victorious accomplishment. So one thing, I know this doesn't have to do with any of these planets right here, but I do, since we were kind of talking about the Me Too movement at the beginning of this a little bit before we started recording, this whole thing right here is really interesting to me, just since the Me Too movement happened when Jupiter was passing through Scorpio. And so if we think about this concept of we can use memory in a conscious and creative manner, we can then bring clarity to the struggles of humanity and as a result, victorious accomplishment. It kind of is me thinking of that hindsight where sometimes we go through a struggle, but we don't really realize what the purpose was or the lesson was of that struggle until we're in hindsight and we're reliving the memory of that experience. And then that is what usually leads to change, you know, is like when we're older and we're like, wait a minute, that wasn't okay. We need to do something about this. So I thought that was a really cool aspect of a way to think about that kind of evolution or transmutation process in Scorpio. And I usually attribute memory to Cancer with transpersonal and traditional astrology. So I think that the 8th house, like, because, you know, all the water houses are very karmic with ancestral and family. So it kind of also adds that next layer to Scorpio. And then seeing Mercury as the hierarchical ruler, and we think of Mercury as, you know, has that information and mind kind of quality to it in traditional astrology. It all just kind of makes sense to me. It's all coming together.
Oh, the thing too she mentions about Scorpio is the testing of humanity with Scorpio and the tempering. So with the Mars exoteric rulership and how we were talking about before with the Mars relationship with Taurus and how the way to work with the physical is through fire or like the Mars energy, which is like a associated with what is it? Which metal is it?
Lead.
Is it Saturn's lead?
So then Mars is iron.
Mars is iron. Yeah. So yeah, Mars is, so then Scorpio has this too within itself with the iron relationship and temperament and like having to use heat and fire and flames for transformation. And also then that comes into play the phoenix connotation and the eagle, the snake and the eagle with Scorpio, which there's a relationship to the evolution of from the snake to an eagle with Scorpio, and then the phoenix is also there too. So that's where the fire kind of comes in with the water and fire. Burn it all down. What else?
We could look at exaltation is Uranus, fall is the moon, and detriment is Venus. Let's see. Uranus characterizes the stage where occult knowledge takes place of the mystic way of feeling, which leads to the transmutation of knowledge into wisdom. Uranus initiates a new order of life and conditions, producing an understanding of causes and the desire to change the old orientation into the new. This can be seen happening today in connection with humanity and with world processes. Venus, the intelligent mind, has its power lessened in Scorpio because the intellect, having been developed and used, must now be subordinated to a higher power of the soul, the spiritual intuition. The moon in Scorpio stands for the personality, and our final victory during the Scorpio cycle, personality desire is sublimated into the light of the soul. Thus, the influence of the moon fades out. So again, like, it's not negative. It's not a bad thing when the moon, it has its fall in Scorpio so much from the esoteric perspective, which I like this perspective way more personally than some of the transpersonal or traditional interpretations that are a lot more negative because it kind of, you see some of the benefits of the placement or like other ways that it's, other things that it's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. What? Oh, dissipation of astral glamour, triumph of the physical plane. So a lot of the meditation seed thoughts are associated with the Taurus opposition, illumination, triumph of the soul, the path of discipleship. strength. These are all sort of key themes. Scorpio stages the release of Leo.
Thank you.
Sagittarius. Crazy. That's a complicated one.
Yeah.
There.
I don't think what we've been looking at is Sag.
What do you mean?
When we looked in the sky, I don't remember seeing all of those ones.
It's complicated. There's just so many. So the Sagittarius constellation is cool because where he's shooting his bow in the sky is the center of the Milky Way and is called in astrology the galactic center. And it's about 27 degrees Sagittarius. And this is supposed to be the point in which we like channel information from. And that's why Sagittarius a lot of times is associated with like, they're also associated with otherworldly, like alien-esque type energy because they have that, the galactic center connection. So like they can channel easily, like bring information in from the outer realms. And yeah.
I see the goal, I reach the goal and see another. I feel like that quote is really good for the 8 of Wands card in the tarot. Just lets me bring my tarot into it. Ray 4, Ray 5, and Ray 6. That feels very Sagittarian to see personally. Sagittarius is the all-consuming of everything, I feel like. So of course it has these like 3 rays. And then exoteric ruler is Jupiter on Ray 2, esoteric Earth on Ray 3, and hierarchical Mars on Ray 6. Shoots towards goal, human ambition to spiritual aspiration, prepping for initiation. Those are my kind of little bullets on there. Anything else here? Exaltation and fall we do not have again because it's Sagittarius.
Let's look into the exoteric, esoteric, and hierarchical expressions of these 3. So the exoteric is Jupiter, like we all know. It is the expansion of energy through knowledge and wisdom. Scorpio was where we transmuted intellect into wisdom, and now Sagittarius is where we integrate that wisdom into the being. And the esoteric, this is interesting because I've always associated Earth with Sagittarius, and I didn't realize that. Like I always in my brain mix up Sagittarius for being an Earth sign for some reason. And now I see it being esoterically related to the Earth. So
that totally makes sense to me just because I like associate Sagittarius with like natural law. Kind of. So I don't know. That's how I tied those 2 together in my brain.
Like they're so interested in like environment and like exploration of the Earth, and it's, I don't know, just going as far as it can to explore Earth, right? Like, I mean, also in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, but first on this planet. And it wants to know everything about the Earth and wants to learn about everything. And so she says here, Earth is the hierarchical ruler of Gemini, the polar opposite of Sagittarius. The relationship of these 2 constellations with the Earth and the cosmic line of force produced through their opposition will eventually ensure that Earth becomes a sacred planet. And one of the reasons why is because Sagittarius is supposed to bring wisdom to all the inhabitants on Earth, to bring the consciousness together as a collective. Mars is the hierarchical ruler, and she says Mars produces great struggles leading to great revelation, disclosing the nature of knowledge and the purpose of incarnation. In Sagittarius, Mars gives us the power to see the vision and to direct our course towards it, which is one of the things she mentions a lot with Sagittarius, which is implementation of a vision. And we think of Diana as being a goddess of Sagittarius. She's got the bow and arrow, which is symbolism for like having a really small target and like putting all of your intention into that one little point. And that's so very Mars too, which is like a very directed energy point. So actually there's a lot of Sagittarius people that are really great with energy healing, and doing like Reiki and acupuncture, because they have that ability to move energy around in a very specific and direct way. Now seeing Mars as the hierarchical rulership, I'm like putting that all together. And also they like alternative health, right? Like they're not going to go to a traditional doctor. Capricorn?
Yeah.
The sea goat.
Lost am I in light supernal, yet on that light I turn my back. Ooh. All right.
Little tableau.
I mean, that feels very Capricornian.
Yeah, it does.
Capricorn's on Ray 1, Ray 3, and Ray 7. Exoteric rulership is Saturn on Ray 3, esoteric Saturn on Ray 3, and Venus is hierarchical on Ray 5.
What's Ray 3, Ray 1, and Ray 7 all about?
Ray 1 is the will and power ray. Ray 7 is that ceremonial order and magic and organization ray. And then Ray 3 is the earth ray. Ray 3 has to do with active intelligence, adaptability, abstract thinking, mental fertility, and creativity. Ray 1, leadership, focus, courage, action, detachment, death, and rebirth. Ray 7, ceremonial magic, ritualism, order, management, synthesis, law. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does. For
Capricorn.
Sure. They love like the hierarchy and of orders, and like the occult is so great for them because there's all these like secret societies. You have to move up in rank and get to the top, and it takes your whole entire life to get there. And then once they get there, they're like, fuck this shit, I'm gonna go away and I'm gonna denounce all of it and share everything I've learned to the world, because the order is just a joke of an illusion. And so that's the
That sounds like a certain Capricorn that we know. I wonder who that could be.
So lost am I in light supernal, yet on that light I turn my back. So that's the explanation of the Saturn journey through this very delicate process, which is if you envision a goat stepping on mountain like cliffs, like very delicately. It's actually really sensitive. And if you know Capricorn, they're actually quite sensitive people emotionally. And that's something that we don't really hear about a lot, but they do have a high level of like she explains with Saturn, is because of the crystallization, it can shatter easily. And so this bit like the Saturnian sort of crystallized wall that they've created is like actually really delicate. You can just tap it and it all falls apart.
And Cancer was hiding underneath the whole time.
Yeah, the baby. And then the turning back on illumination is like, so Capricorn is the 10th house, which is the zenith in the sky, which is the highest point in the, like from where you're standing looking straight up would be the zenith in any point of the day. And so when Capricorn represents this 10th house, there is also the inevitable fall from the zenith, and that's sort of the peak of a Capricorn's evolution, which would be into the hierarchical Venus, which is the integration of self with the mundane people, the lower class, basic humans who can benefit from their great mind. So they do have a little bit of a superiority complex, like once they get up to the top. But the whole lesson for them is to shed that leadership self for the sake of, I guess, integrating the self with the rest of humanity and not being just like on top of the mountain alone.
Yeah, she says that the Venusian energies in the sign of Capricorn represent the merging of love and mind, as playing off what you're saying for that, learning how to utilize their wisdom for the benefit of people, learning to love people enough to share some of that wisdom, not just dominate all of us.
The turning back, the descent from the mountain, and in order to lift up humanity, reminded me of the Bodhisattva. What the Bodhisattvas are here to do. Like, they can see illumination and they like, I can touch it, I'm so close, but they refrain from pure enlightenment because they know that they're not going to attain any sort of true enlightenment unless all of humanity is evolving with them.
And I'm gonna have Steely Dan stuck in my head.
Why?
Bodhisattva.
Oh.
Bodhisattva, Bodhisattva. Those for you out there who like Steely Dan will know.
I do not know. Aquarius.
Water of life am I, poured forth for thirsty men and women, please, and non-binary.
I changed it to people.
Oh, okay. Well, what about the animals?
The beings.
Aquarius is on ray 5, and its exoteric ruler is Uranus on ray 7, esoteric Jupiter ray 2, and then hierarchical, the moon veiling Uranus, which is interesting to me to see that, because it's interesting when we have been talking about all the signs and kind of looking at the exoteric personality as like unevolved, I guess is what we would say, and then we see the evolved, it's like a full circle back to itself kind of, but maybe the moon integration is where the evolution happens. So yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting thing about that. I have, for some bullet points, putting individuality to work for the good of the whole, humanitarian, service of the personality, transmuting to serve humanity, kind of a lot of those themes in here that we read. Obviously, it seems like kind of the overall theme of each sign. Like, this is kind of where when I read a lot of stuff that feels kind of repetitive. I don't know if you guys felt this way reading some of this chapter, but I'm just like, okay, I get it. We're all evolving to help humanity, you know, through all these planets and all these rays. Okay, I got it. And we were joking about just getting to the point already with some of it a little bit. And I think Aquarius feels that way the most to me, because it just seems so obvious that that's what we're doing in Aquarius, is helping the collective consciousness.
It's obvious to you and I because we're already in the realm of working in the Aquarian age. And so we're like, yeah, we get it. We understand that we need to be collective and share with everybody and raise the vibration for all and leave no person behind. And so I think Aquarius is just so, like, the message of the whole book is Aquarius.
It feels that way. Yeah, because I think we are, the plan, when they're like referencing the plan or the great work, and you read like the Secret Doctrine and all these other books that were written like in the spiritualist movement and the New Age movement, it's all focused on this time of entering the Aquarian age. So I think it's kind of hard to see it any other way, because it's kind of all that anybody's focused on in these movements for so long.
So the exoteric ruler of Aquarius is Uranus, as we all know, and it's she didn't say Saturn though, because Saturn's the traditional ruler of Aquarius. And then the esoteric is Jupiter, hierarchical, moon, Uranus. So the esoteric relationship to Your Aquarius with Jupiter is what I loved that because it made so much sense. If we think about Jupiter's rulership over Sagittarius and Sagittarius's need for freedom and growth and evolution of knowledge, she says with Jupiter ruling Aquarius that the growth leads to greater freedom, or the growth of knowledge leads to greater freedom, which knowledge is power. The more you know, the more you can grow and glow and be more free.
No glowing in Aquarius.
No.
We've burned that away.
That's true. It's just very basic scientific knowledge. But no, actually the evolution of Aquarius is to get out of like the scientific knowledge and integrate it with the moon, which is emotion, and to have intuition with that. So she merges the two with like knowledge and intuition, like being able to intuit what you're knowing instead of needing to have like, oh, I need to read it, I need the scientific explanation, I need to have that like formula, I need to know like what it's written in the book, but like having that intuition to just know and like have it be and exist, which I think is a downfall of science a lot of times. And Aquarius is related to science and scientific evolution and scientific awareness too. There's like moving to the Aquarian age, there's like the shadow side, which is science being God or God being replaced by science, and the more masculine part of Aquarius, which it's a masculine sign, but yeah.
Keynote on the path, Aquarius releases Virgo from her load. That was my favorite.
Your children.
All right, Pisces is next. I leave the father's home, and turning back I save. I love that. I really associate that with death, to be honest. Oh, sorry, I keep shaking. I have a thing with my feet. I like touching things with my feet, and I'm shaking the table, so it probably shook the video. Sorry.
Speaking of feet and Pisces.
Oh, whoa. I started doing stuff with my feet. Pisces rules the feet, for those of you who don't know. I'm a Pisces moon, so my feet, there you go. Pisces is on Ray 2 and Ray 6. Its exoteric rulership is Jupiter, esoteric Neptune and Pluto, and hierarchical is Pluto. Let's see what I wrote here for notes. Fusion of soul and form. Formula 6 equals the word of death. Sensitivity to higher impression, renunciation, or detachment. Divine consciousness. Pisces takes from all the signs. Those were my bullet points on Pisces for esoteric astrology.
Is that? No.
That was it. We were in a hurry.
So Jupiter is the exoteric, and also Neptune in whatever. She like flips between traditional and modern rulership, so that's interesting. But yeah, it's Jupiter and Neptune for the rulership, and then she puts esoteric, well she doesn't, but the esoteric rulership is Neptune and Pluto, and that those two planets together just makes so much sense in terms of the like the death of the self, or the death of the ultimate freedom would be death and transcendence from the physical plane and into the spiritual, and the merging of the self with source through Pluto, which is where we see the last bit of that merging of like the death of self and death of ego in Scorpio. And the hierarchical is Pluto. And I think, is there any other planet sign that has Pluto as a hierarchical planet ruler? Because I think that might be the only one.
For that specific, the hierarchical.
Yeah.
I think it is the only one.
That's like the end. It's like, that's it.
Right.
Pluto, done. Death. Death is the ultimate.
But rebirth.
But rebirth, yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn the page.
Creation is a form of destruction, or destruction is a form of creation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I relate a lot to that, as I'm sure your 12th house sons
Oh yeah.
do. All I ever do is fantasize about death, to be honest.
Dark.
It's the most positive once you know what's waiting for you.
A lot of transcendent experiences happen through Pisces, like past life regressions and hypnosis. Music transcends us into alternate realities. And when we go into these alternate realities, we have no conception of the physical self. And Pluto is the symbol for Pluto is just that, where the circle in the center is floating in the crescent, which is spirit over matter. So the floating little circle in there is the transcendence of the physical and through the spirit. And so I think one of the only planetary symbols has no connection with any of the other lines is Pluto. So that's kind of a representation of that, like transcendence of the physical form. The ultimate is through death and dying, and transformation.
Yeah, and I like this little thing she says about that too. She says it negates the destructive effect of the death process, which is going on all the time within the mechanism of the disciple or initiate. The death proceeds with its needed work, but is not destructive in effect. This formula has never been given out before to disciples, but can now be known because the Piscean age is one in which the last power of physical death is definitely broken, and the signature of the resurrection is revealed. So I guess I kind of interpreted that as like the mysteries have now been revealed. So there's not a negative connotation with death anymore. Whereas like maybe in our, like maybe in like pre-Piscean age, if we were, a more unevolved type of human that didn't see death, we just saw death in a very black and white kind of way, and it was really traumatic, and we didn't have these concepts of maybe like reincarnation or those types of things. Death was really scary, and now we have like this other wisdom, so we can evolve into this place of death being a rite of passage or the next step of soul evolution instead of just you're done, which obviously not everybody believes in, but it's just I kind of saw that as speaking to some of that.
And then with Pisces, like jumping off of how we can view Pisces and the planetary relationships as ages and our religious beliefs with Christianity, Jesus is related to the fish, because Jesus represents the Piscean age that we're moving out of, the Christ consciousness, and moving into Aquarian of Christ, right? Is the like epitome of Christianity and that whole spiritual movement. It was like the epitome of the resurrection of Christ. Like the whole story is around him dying and then being resurrected. And like the concept within that though is to share that humanity, the soul is resurrected through many lifetimes, and it's something that is a symbolic representation of that. We're supposed to transcend, the fear of death through understanding that we evolve continuously. And going into the Aquarian age now, it's like a totally different experience with that evolution in terms of like, so now our ego is aware of the death process, and we're okay with that. So now that we are okay with dying within the ego self, we can merge with everybody else, and the individual person then doesn't need to be expressed or experienced as strongly. Like now it's all about the collective, I guess. What else?
Pisces takes from all the signs.
Yeah.
Keynote on the path. I mean, there's a lot of bullet notes with Pisces in terms of everything it represents. There's self-preservation into selfless world service, selfishness into divine selflessness, devotion to the needs of the self, and to develop devotion in response to the needs of humanity. It makes sense too, because if you know Pisces people or 12th house people, there is kind of a sense of duty to others. Everyone with those energies is very empathetic and feels other people's energy in a really intense way. And when you can empathize with something that is outside of you, even though technically we're all one. I mean, the whole Piscean thing is that you realize we're all connected, we're all one, because you can feel that other person's energy or being or consciousness. And so that's kind of in Pisces, we realize we are all a part of the same life force and energy. And then that in turn makes us be able to, view everyone as equal. And then in turn, we want to treat others the way we want to be treated. And we have a sense of duty to others. And so that's kind of what all of the meditation seed thoughts are about, is that. So I wrote some prompts because we're kind of getting towards the end here. So I kind of wanted to give us a little bit of time to just maybe have a little short discussion. So I'll just read all 3 of them. And if there's one that resonates for any of you that you want to speak about, or maybe none of them resonate for you, but you want to speak about something else, that's totally fine. But I put, how did you relate to these descriptions in relation to your own chart? Do you have any placements in esoteric or hierarchical rulership? And which sign is the hardest for you to grasp from an esoteric lens?
Those are a lot of questions. What was the first one?
That was kind of rapid fire.
Yeah, I agree. It was fast.
How did you
relate to these descriptions in relation to your own chart?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
The other
I definitely felt I relate. I mean, I have such strong Aries and Capricorn energy in my chart, and I definitely related to the descriptions a lot, in terms of kind of the more spiritual aspects of Capricorn, since that's my moon sign, of kind of feeling like you work really hard to attain, get to the top of the mountain and then realize you have to go back because it's really about everyone else too. It's not just about yourself. That definitely resonated for me a lot. I'm trying to think if I have Mercury in Aries, so that would be one of the hierarchical, or I don't know, was that esoteric or hierarchical? I think it was hierarchical. Hierarchical.
Esoteric.
With what?
Aries, Mercury. Yeah, it's esoteric on Ray 4.
Okay, yeah, Uranus was the hierarchical ruler. Yeah, I feel like I related to those 2, and then the Virgo one a lot, like I mentioned earlier.
Oh, right.
What about you?
I related to all of it.
Yeah, all of them.
I am all.
That's your 12th house sign. I'm all the signs.
I'm everything. Oh, it's the 12th house Libra. I can see every point, so I can relate to all of it.
Right. Yeah, it's true.
What was your next question?
The next question was, do you have any placements in esoteric or hierarchical rulership? So you said that you knew your Mercury was an esoteric rulership.
Notice I have a lot of falls and detriments.
Yeah.
Because my Venus is in Aries too.
So was that your only one Mercury in Aries? Did you have any more?
Oh, I have Sun in Aries too, so I guess that's exalted, but that's not necessarily what you were asking. Yeah, I think that's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head.
I think that'd be a good homework assignment, is to go through each of your planet placements and write out all of the like esoteric, exoteric, hierarchical, detriment, fall. I think that's it, right?
Yeah.
Exalted.
Yeah. And then the rays maybe that they're on,
Oh yeah.
if you want to go that far with
Mhm.
it. But yeah, I think that's a great homework assignment, just to kind of, and then kind of reflecting on some of these chapters and what we were thinking about in relation to the evolution of self. Like, are there things that we're still in the exoteric about? Are we in the esoteric? Are we in hierarchical? And maybe we have a little bit of all three. Like, what does that look like? That could be a fun exercise. The next question is, which sign is the hardest for you to grasp from an esoteric lens out of all 12?
That's a good question. Saturn, Uranus, Earth, Pluto, Moon. Neptune, Vulcan.
To answer your earlier questions, Annalisa, I just went through the whole chart. I didn't get to the exaltation, falls, and detriments, but I literally have none of these. The
Oh,
closest thing I have is my moon in Sagittarius is in the 6th house, which would maybe, I don't know if it, if that connects it at all to the soul ruler moon, Vulcan, and Virgo. But I literally managed to defy all of it.
Interesting.
you must not be very evolved yet. Just kidding. I'm joking.
That's what a spiritual bypassing new age person would say.
They'd be like, you should buy my next course on how to evolve out of your
of the lower mind.
join our cult
into the 5D.
We're all about the 8th dimension.
Yeah, screw 5D. 11D.
That is probably what.
Well, I guess I'd actually, is Vulcan something you can add on Astro Dia, whatever the hell?
It is, yeah. You have to figure out what it is on the number thing, but yeah, you can. You have to go to, isn't it
like theoretical?
Yes. Theoretical.
Yeah, I forget what mine is. I think
Hypothetical planets?
Yes.
That one?
Vulcan.
Oh, Vulcan is H55. Take that down, ladies.
All right. H55 on astro.com is how you can find Vulcan. Thanks for asking.
Oh, yeah, well, I guess if we're still being recorded, take it down, people.
Isn't Vulcan like a placement?
Yeah.
Not an actual, it's a point.
No, because all I can ever think of is this.
Yeah, it's not. So there was, back when it was discovered, quote unquote, because it's not actually real, there was they saw a black dot that was on the sun that wasn't moving. So they thought they discovered another celestial body of some sort, and then it ended up moving and being gone and got ruled out as some other kind of celestial phenomenon. But so many astrologers had put so much weight on it that they refused to let it go. And so that's why we have Vulcan and why it's in the hypothetical or theoretical category. So yeah, it's an interesting thing, and you're welcome to Google and look up more stuff, obviously, about it. Take it or leave it. But I think that just thinking of the energies of Pluto and Mars as like the archetype, like we can apply to maybe some of those themes still.
I don't get Mercury and Aries too much as the esoteric ruler. So maybe Danny, you can help me out on that.
Yeah, when you were talking about it earlier, I was kind of thinking like how I think of Aries and Mars like that really like base like instinct, even like as a form of intuition, but really coming from like instinct. and then kind of it moving up into intellect, and then Uranus being like the higher octave of intellect. But yeah, it is interesting, like that kind of growth process through that sign in particular. But that's kind of how I was processing it.
Yeah, I'll have to meditate on that more. But that does make sense with the intuition versus intellect, intuition versus instinct. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple cards in some different decks that associate the magician with either Mercury in Virgo or Mercury in Aries. And so I always kind of, whenever I see Mercury and Aries and the magician card, I kind of associate like the self-discovery aspect of Mercury and Aries working together. So I feel like that's kind of also like the illuminated mind, awareness of self, rather than just being the self. Maybe.
Yeah, that I like that. That's really cool. I thought of you the other day on an unrelated detour. My roommate, you remember Jenny? She moved into my apartment.
I just want to mention that it is recording, so if it's
okay. Oh, sorry. Anyway, she found this Aquarian tarot deck, which I know you've posted before, but it was at her dad's house and she gave it to me and like opened it up, and it's like actually like a 1975.
Wow.
Super ancient deck.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was really excited.
You gotta send me some pictures.
I will. It looks the same, but it's just like older.
Nice. Awesome. That's great.
cool.
Any other signs that we're having a hard time with, or are we good?
I think we're good. The next chapters to read will be 7 and 8, and that goes into the planets.
Cool.
So that's going deep into the planets and also Earth energy. And then after that, if you do feel like keeping on going, you can go into the aspects, then the geometrical relationships between the planets. And then also, timing. Then we get into like the technical stuff of like timing and karma and all the things that this book is promising. So 7 and 8 would be the next one, and we're meeting on let's just take a look at the calendar real quick. I thought I said the second to last Thursday of every month, but I guess apparently I said the third Thursday?
Yeah, you did. It's in an email written, so we can't negate it now.
I think I wrote the other thing in an email before. But anyways, it's the 20th of August. And
which I'm gone all week, so we might move it to the 27th.
Yeah, looks like we'll probably move the next one to the 27th then. Because you're gone. Unless you feel like
having book club
coming in, yeah.
We'll talk about it and let you guys know.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop the recording. I'm just going to say like an outro and then stop for the YouTube video. This is Evelyn and Annalisa, and we are owners of the Mystic Parlor, which is a mystical shop in Yucca Valley. You can find information on us and what we provide on themysticparlor.com. Also, if you want to join the Esoteric Book Club chats with us, you can subscribe to our email list and be notified of when we'll be logging in and then have the login information. And that's it. Thank you.